be able to produce more meat, to be able to keep more livestock. So what's the solution? How do we supply a growing global population without sacrificing the environment or human and animal health? Well, in essence, we've got three main options. The first is the simplest, but probably the most difficult because it involves changing people's behaviors. We could eat less meat. Meatless Mondays, people could become vegetarian or flexitarian. This is all well and good, we encourage this, but it's unrealistic in the next few years to expect that the majority or all of the people on the planet are going to stop eating meats. It's just not realistic to think that that could happen. The second option is to farm more sustainably. Again, this should be encouraged, and certainly agricultural companies are trying to reduce their impact on the planet and increase their yields. However, there's only so far you can take this, and it appears that we may be reaching the limits of how densely you can grow plants and animals. So the third option is to develop better alternatives or substitutes for meat. This path is the newest, and it holds tremendous promise. So in the past decade, you've seen a profusion of meat alternatives. So this is a shelf section in a grocery store near where I live, and I would imagine it looks similar in many parts of the world. This is the section of the grocery store where you can buy alternative forms of meat, tofu, tempeh, seitan, soy. These are plant-based protein sources. And we're seeing a lot more options for this and a lot more demand for this, and we think it's fantastic. However, it's not enough. Plant products, no matter how they're made, are not perfect substitutes for the flavor, the texture, and the mouthfeel, and the nutritional quality of meat. So this is where we come in. We're creating a new option. So essentially what we realized is animal products are just collections of tissues. So currently what we do is we breed and raise highly complex conscious beings, like cows and pigs and goats and other animals, just so that we can cut them apart to get these tissues, to get meat or leather or other animal products. We thought to ourselves, instead of starting with a complex living creature and cutting it apart for its component tissues, what if we could make these tissues directly? What if we could make meat and leather directly from living cells? And this is what we're doing. So this idea actually isn't even that new. As far back as the 1930s, people were thinking, how can we fundamentally change how meat and animal products are made? So Winston Churchill wrote about the absurdity of traditional animal farming and suggested that within 50 years, it would be possible to grow meat without having to raise, slaughter, and transport an entire animal. So this is the way he phrased it. We shall escape the absurdity of growing a whole chicken in order to eat the breast or wing by growing these parts separately under a suitable medium. So 50 years later would have been the 1980s, so we just missed his deadline, but this vision is fast becoming a reality. This is because of biofabrication. So biofabrication is an array of techniques where you start with living cells and you use those living cells to form more complex tissues, to grow things like muscle, skin, and organs. This over here is an ear that was grown for medical purposes to transplant into a patient. And so this has already become a reality. This ear has been transplanted into a patient. We've also seen biofabricated windpipes, blood vessels, and bladders be successfully transplanted into patients. Now, making biological materials for consumer applications, not medical applications, is actually easier than this. So what does this process look like for meat? How does one go about creating meat from starting cells? So this is sort of a high-level overview of what we do in the lab. So we start with cells taken from an animal. It could be a cow, it could be a pig or a goat. Doesn't really matter so much. We take a very, very small biopsy from the animal. That's like a tiny little tissue sample. It doesn't hurt the animal. The animal goes on to lead a very healthy and happy life. And from that tiny tissue sample, we isolate the cells we want. So for instance, to make meat, we would isolate muscle cells. Once we've isolated the cells we want, we then feed them nutrients and cell culture media, and they multiply. Those cells expand from millions of cells to billions of cells. Once we have the cells we need, we then assemble them into muscle units. So we've heard a lot about 3D printing, and our team actually pioneered 3D bioprinting. But if you want to make a much larger amount of tissue, 3D bioprinting actually isn't the best option. So we're developing much more scalable techniques to grow tissues in much larger quantities. So once you've assembled muscle units, you combine those muscle units into a meat tissue. The tissue can be enhanced with vitamins, flavorings, whatever you desire, and then it's ready to cook and eat. We believe biofabrication can be a humane, sustainable, and scalable new industry. And we think now's the time to create it, because as a planet, we're desperately in need of new solutions. Okay, so this is not science fiction, this is actually reality. We've already done this. So over here on the left is a picture of our Chief Scientific Officer, Gabor Forgach, who in 2011 at TED-Med unveiled a little pork chop that we had grown in our lab, and he cooked it up and ate it on stage, and I'm happy to say that he's doing just fine. And then this past summer, a researcher, Dr. Mark Post in Europe, created an entire hamburger made from cultured meat. So this hamburger, the cells came from a cow, but the burger itself did not necessitate the killing of an animal. And that was also cooked and eaten at a public event and was very well received. In addition to all the benefits that I mentioned before, we believe that cultured meat can be better than traditional meat. So we can mimic traditional meat exactly, but you might not even want to do that. You might actually use the fact that you're manufacturing from the starting cells as an opportunity to improve meat. Potentially, meat can be made healthier. We can make it with less fat and cholesterol, and this is a natural process. Because if you take muscle cells and you grow those muscle cells up into a meat tissue, naturally that's fat-free. To get fat in an animal product, you actually have to have fat cells. So if you just don't include the fat cells, you have fat-free meat. Cultured meat has a much shorter supply chain. It can be grown locally and on demand in a matter of weeks. Growing a cow on the other side of the world and then shipping it takes years. There's less disease risk. So meat can be cultured in a controlled, clean environment. And finally, there's a great culinary potential for chefs to create their own shapes, their own cuts of meat, and their own flavor combinations. And I, for one, am really looking forward to seeing what some of the world's best chefs are going to do with that. So this is all coming soon. But in the meantime, we believe we should introduce biofabricated animal products by reimagining leather. So why leather? Well, for one, it's very widely used. We use millions of square feet of leather. Virtually every country and culture on the planet uses leather, and it's used in a very wide range of products, from clothing to cars. Growing leather is also technically simpler than growing other animal products like meat. It uses mainly one cell type and is generally a flat 2D tissue construct. It's also less polarizing for consumers and for regulators. Until biofabrication is better understood, we think that more people might be accepting of wearing a biofabricated product than they might be of eating one, however delicious it may be. So in a sense, leather's a start, it's a beginning for the biofabrication industry. And if we can succeed here, it puts other consumer products very close on the horizon. So what does the leather production process look like in the lab? Well, it's similar very similar to the bioproduction of meat. So first we source cells. Now these can come from a cow, a pig, and any animal that's used for leather or anything else. It could also come from something more exotic, alligator, crocodile, ostrich. So once we take a very small sample of cells, again, this does not harm the animal, we isolate the skin cells that we want. We then expand those cells from millions to billions of cells in a culture medium. And then we grow those cells into flat sheets. Now, the cells produce collagen during this process, and it's the collagen that is the structural building block of leather. It's what gives leather its toughness and its characteristics. We then layer the sheets and allow them to fuse together to create the desired thickness. We can make leather as thin or thick as we like. And then we take this leather through a tanning process that is much shorter and much less chemically intensive than traditional tanning. So we can do the same colors, the same finishes, but we don't need to use nearly as many chemicals because we don't have to remove hair or muscle or fat from the leather. It's then dyed and finished and ready to make into beautiful products. So the economics of this, the efficiency of this process are, the numbers are tremendous. So this is based on an Oxford study that showed that cultured meat uses 99% less land at its maximum efficiency, 96% less water, produces 96% fewer greenhouse gas emissions, and about half as much energy as growing traditional farmed meat. And the numbers for leather even look a little better than this, because leather is traditionally shipped and processed much more than meat is. So with that, I am very pleased to show you some of the leather that we've made in our lab. So this is the world's first, I'm just going to walk over here so you can see it on the big screen. This is the world's first bioengineered leather. So as you can see, it's soft. It looks like genuine leather because it is genuine leather. It's made from cow cells. So this is cow leather that was grown in our lab without animal or environmental sacrifice. And we can make it as thin or thick as we like. We can actually make it thinner than any leather that you could get through traditional means. So let me show you an example of that. So this is leather that's about